can we help the generation like you in enhancing English skills with a focus on employability. And we are present in 30 plus countries with a panel of over thousands of trainers, and have been blessed to touch and make an impact in the lives of millions of students. I also take this opportunity to welcome Andrew Steele, who is our head of tutors and training. Andrew has decades of experience in international arena. He is an IELTS expert. He's a communication skills trainer. He has taught, he has developed materials for English language, and he has trained thousands and thousands of students of all age groups in the sessions from two to thousands across many countries. So if you have a globe and if you blindfold yourself and if you touch any nation, Andrew in all probability has visited and trained students therein. So what are we waiting for? Let's begin this session. Over to you, Andrew.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much, Lena. And good morning, everyone. Good morning, all the Purnima University students and the Purnima Institute students and the Purnima College students. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. I'd like to thank Mr. Rahul Singh and Mrs. Garima Mathur very much for inviting me to do this webinar today. I'm coming to you from Kathmandu in Nepal, where it's quite cold and foggy. That's why I've got a nice pullover on. And today we're going to be talking about communication skills. Let me begin by just telling you a little bit about myself. I'm the head of tutoring and training for Burlington English in South Asia and Southeast Asia. And I've been working for the organization now for about 4 or 5 months. Today, we're going to be looking at communication skills, as I'm sure you know. And particularly, we're going to be thinking about why communication skills are important, why particularly English communication skills are so important. And we'll have a Q&A session at the end of my talk. So if you have any questions, please do feel free to type them into the Q&A or the chat boxes. My colleague Lena will be curating these questions as we go along, and she'll feed them to me at the end of my talk. Let's just make sure that everyone can hear me clearly. This is going to be an interactive webinar. I'll be asking you to type things into the Q&A or chat box as we go along. So Lena, perhaps you could just check. If you can hear me clearly, please type yes into the Q&A. Can you type that in now, please, if you can hear me clearly?
Oh, Andrew, we are receiving a lot of yeses. So I think
we're receiving a lot of yeses. Thank you, Lena. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so let me share my screen with you now. Just a moment. Okay, so here we are. Let me begin by telling you a little something about myself. I've told you that I work for Burlington English. I'd like to tell you a couple of other things. First of all, I'd like to tell you that I love dogs. And here is one of them, as you can see in the picture. There she is. She's having a good yawn. And that's next to a picture of me in my hometown. Perhaps you'd like to have a guess where I'm from. Where do you think that is? What country do you think that is? Why don't you type into the chat box if you think you know where I'm from? Maybe not the town. You could type the country. Where do you think I'm from? Are there any answers coming in, Lena?
Yes.
Okay, so where do people think I'm from?
Rajveer thinks that you're from Berlin. Rahul thinks you're from England. Himanshu again thinks you're from Berlin. And then there are people who think you're from Canada. Utkarsh thinks you're from Canada. Lots and lots of people think that you are from UK. I think UK and Berlin is their favorite.
Right. Well, I am indeed from the UK, and this is a picture of me on the beach in Brighton, which is a city in the south of the country, south of England, which was where I was born. Also, I was going to ask you about my dog. You can see her there. Do we have a poll function that you can see here, Lena?
Yes.
Where is the poll function? I can't see it on my screen.
Okay, I have it here.
Can you launch the poll?
Sure, but the thing is that here in this particular poll, all the 3 questions are coming all together.
Okay, that doesn't matter. We'll just focus on the first one.
All right, so I'm launching the
Okay,
poll.
so your poll question to start with, just have a look at number 1 and have a look at my lovely dog there. What do you think her name is? Is it Lucy, Momo, or Fatty Bum Bum? Can you type or indicate your answer on the poll now? Question number 1 only. Have we got some poll answers coming in, Lena?
Yes, a lot of them are responding.
Okay, well, we'll give you another 10 seconds, then we're going to close the poll and have a look at the results. Okay, can you close the poll, Lena, and share the results with everyone in the webinar?
Sure.
And what do people think?
Okay, so I'm ignoring. This is a very enthusiastic crowd, Andrew.
Oh, good. Good.
So they have not only responded to the first question, they've also responded to the next 2, but I'm ignoring that response. We'll relaunch the poll for when the time comes.
Okay.
But most of them, nearly 47% of them think that she is Lucy. 31% think that she is Momo. I think this has to do with Nepal. And 22% think she's Fatty Bum Bum.
Well, congratulations to the 22%. She is indeed called Fatty Bum Bum. And the reason I called her Fatty Bum Bum is because I thought it would be quite funny if when I'm out taking her for a walk, I could shout at the top of my voice, "Hey, Fatty Bum Bum!" And that always makes me laugh. So that's why I called her such a silly name. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to begin, and we really are beginning now. That's enough about me and my dogs. I'm going to begin by telling you a bad joke, which you may have heard before. So let me begin. There was once a doctor and an engineer, and they were both in love with a scientist called Rena. Every day, the doctor gave Rena a beautiful red rose, and every day, the engineer gave Rena a shiny red apple. Now, why do you think that the engineer gave Rena a shiny red apple? Any ideas? Well, I'll tell you. It's because an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Boom, boom. There you go, you see? If you communicate in good English, you can win friends by telling them bad jokes. They'll love you for it. It's enough of that. Let's begin to be a little bit more serious now. The reason that I told you those silly jokes there is so that you think, well, you know, he's an interesting kind of guy and this is going to be an interesting webinar. And that's what I wanted to communicate to you right at the beginning. Your communication speaks through what you do, what you say. So it's important to make the impression that you want to make. Okay, let's now think about communication in a bit more detail. Now, of course, you're all studying at various Purnima organizations, and you're studying presumably for some sort of qualification. Now, of course, qualifications are absolutely key. They're absolutely the most important thing. And you need good qualifications if you want to get on in life. Qualifications are things that are tested. You attend an exam or some sort of formal test in order to get your qualification. But I think that there are many personal qualities which are never really tested, which are equally important if you really want to get on in life. I'd like you to have a think about that now. What are some of the most important personal qualities that you really need to succeed in your life and your career, which are not tested in formal exams? And I'd like you to note some of your ideas in the chat or Q&A box now, please. Can I give you 10 or 20 seconds to do that? The question is, what personal qualities which are important for success are not tested in formal exams? 10 or 20 seconds, please, to type your answers in the chat or the Q&A. Are we getting some responses coming through, Lena?
Lot of it, actually. This is a very interesting bunch of people that we have here. Honesty. There are two students have said honesty, communication skills, patience, good attitude, creativity, confidence and attitude, hard work, personality, ambition, communication skill, determination, teamwork. It's going on.
Wow. There's some really fantastic responses there. Thank you very much for those. Let me share a few with you. Yeah, have a look at these. Here are some personal qualities which are not measured by tests. If you look through that list, you'll see that quite a lot of those are connected to good communication skills. And I think this just highlights that we don't necessarily learn the communication skills that we need to succeed in our career and to succeed in our life through the academic study that we pursue at colleges, universities, and institutes. Let's move on to have a look at a quote. Now, I had a look on the internet, and this quote is attributed to many different sources, so I'm not quite sure who originally said it. But I do think that it's an interesting and relevant quote nonetheless. Just have a read of the quote. So we've got 3 percentages in there. The 5%, which is absolutely crucial, don't get me wrong, your qualifications are absolutely fundamental in order to get a good start in your career. And that's what you're pursuing now. However, is it your qualifications that really determine your success? Well, no. Some of your success is going to come as you get older from your professional experience. And if you've got some good qualifications and good professional experience, then yeah, that's 20% of your potential for success accounted for. But have a look at the 80%. 80% of your potential for success is determined by your communication skills. It's simply a fact that people who are very successful tend to have excellent communication skills. And it's those communication skills that have got them where they are today. Speaking from my own personal experience, I would say that communication has been incredibly important to me in my career. And many of the jobs and assignments that I've worked on, I've only managed to secure those through excellent communication skills. So they really are very important. Even if the percentages aren't entirely accurate, and I have a feeling that they might not be, then we can still see that communication skills are an absolute asset for you to succeed in your life. Okay, we're going to think a little bit more about communication skills now, because we'll have a look at this list. All of these things require good communication skills. Many of them connected to your career, some of them connected to what you might be doing in your social life. Excellent communication skills, and these days, especially in English, can really help you to succeed. I'm going to show you a couple of numbers in a minute, which are connected to communication skills. And what I'd like you to do, please, is to type in the chat box or Q&A what you think these numbers represent. Now, remember, these numbers are connected to communication skills in some way. So make sure that that's where you focus your thinking. Let's have a look at the first one. 7,000. What do you think this number represents? Can you type your ideas in the chat box now, please? Have we got some ideas coming in, Lena?
Yes. So Rishabh Sharma thinks it's his placement. See how focused they are. A few of them saying it's salary in dollars, 7,000 communication books. Oh, there are some game lovers also. So Rohit Kumar Bhave says it's Avengers Endgame. And
excellent.
Then, yeah.
Sorry, one more.
Yeah, 7,000 as 0, 0, and one more 0 and 7, James Bond.
Awesome, excellent creative ideas there. Let me tell you what it is. This is the average number of words that an English language speaker uses per day. 7,000 words, that's quite a lot. So, you know, making every one of those words count can turn you into an excellent communicator. Quite a lot of words to be thinking about there. Here's another number. What do you think this represents? Again, it's connected to communication. Again, please type your ideas in the chat box. Have we got some answers coming in there, please, Lena?
Yeah, 67 sentences, type of language, words per minute, and number. And I think the James Bond joke is kind of a hit in the crowd.
Okay, well, let me tell you what this represents. This represents the average number of text messages that teams in US-based organizations send and receive every day. So that's an awful lot of communication going on. And you can bet your bottom dollar that things are going to work more smoothly and the team are going to be happier if those pieces of communication are effective. So hopefully those two numbers have shown you that it's really very important to master your communication skills because we're using many, many words and using those words for many different types of communications on a daily basis. So communication forms a big part of our life. So, are you communicating effectively? Can we launch the second poll question now, please, Lena?
Sure. So this is a request to all the students that when you're taking this poll, only respond to the second question, please. Ignore the first, you've already answered. And for 3, let's wait a little.
Okay, so the poll's coming now.
Yes.
There we go. So how would you rate your communication skills in English? You've got 3 options. Can you tick the one that you think applies to you? And we'll allow a couple of minutes, well, a minute or so for the polling. We got responses coming in, Lena?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so let's give it another 10 or 15 seconds and then we'll close the poll.
Sure.
Okay, maybe we could close the poll now and have a look at the results.
Sure. Okay. So nearly 71% think that they are okay, but they could do better. 14% are confident that they are excellent and they are so good. And 15%, please don't feel so bad. They're saying, don't ask, they are terrible.
Oh no. Well, maybe if you thought that your communication skills are okay, or if you think they're terrible, I'm sure they're not terrible. Very few people have terrible communication skills. Maybe you could find out how many percent was it who gave themselves the top score?
14%.
14%. So find out who your colleagues are who think they've got excellent communication skills, and maybe they can help you to build your confidence and to communicate better. Thank you very much for that, Lena. Let's go back to my visuals here. You don't need to type your answers for these ones, but these are things I'd like you to think about. And I'd just like to highlight here why these are important things to think about, especially in the world of work. So the first one is, are you communicating effectively? Now, if your language is complicated, maybe lengthy, maybe you can't say things in a short, precise manner. Maybe the language you're using is slightly confused. Now, what's likely to happen here? Well, you're likely to lose people's attention or find it difficult to command people's attention. If they don't really understand what you're saying, then it's unlikely that they're going to listen to you. Also, if you're not communicating effectively, it can be very difficult to explain yourself clearly. Now, obviously, explaining yourself clearly is crucial, both in education and in the workplace. So something to think about there. Another question, which I think you should be asking yourself, is, are you creating the right impression? Now, this might be a first impression, or it might be a more lasting impression. Did you know that most researchers agree that we create a first impression within the first 7 seconds of meeting someone? So there's not very long to do it. What can you do to create the impression that you want to create? 7 seconds isn't long, as I said. So do your communication skills ensure that you do that? And this could be not just what you say, but also how you look, what you're wearing, what you're doing with your hands and arms and face, all of those non-verbal elements of communication. So again, I think that's a crucial question to ask and something that you want to make sure you get right. Next question then, do people listen to your ideas? Now, if you want to be successful academically or in the world of work, it's crucial that you can get your fantastic, brilliant, original ideas across to someone in a clear and precise manner. Can you present your thoughts clearly and succinctly? And if you can't, this could be a real hindrance to getting the job that you want, getting the promotion that you want, getting the assignment that you want, all of those types of things. The last question I'd like to ask you and ask you to think about is this. Oh, no, it's not that. Let me stop sharing my screen. The last question I'd like you to think about is this. Are you a good listener? We've been talking about your production, the words that you use and the way you get them across to people, but we haven't thought about the receptive skill of communication, which is listening. Listening and showing interest is really crucial if you want to create that great first impression and build relationships with your colleagues at university or college or in your institute or in the world of work. And just to demonstrate how important this is, I'm going to do a little role play with Lena. Are you ready, Lena?
Yes, sure, I am.
Okay, so Lena doesn't know what's going to happen here. I've just told her that I'm going to ask her to do a role play. It's very simple, Lena. I'd like you to pick a topic that you can talk about quite easily for about 30 to 40 seconds. Okay? So can you think of a topic that you can talk about? Don't start yet, but can you think of a topic that you can talk about for 30 to 40 seconds?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, you've got one. Okay. So I'd just like you to talk to me, explain to me your ideas for about 30 to 40 seconds, and then I'll stop you and we'll have a little chat. Is that okay?
Sure, sure.
Okay, so your 30 seconds, Lena, starts now.
Great. So, Andy, I have this wonderful idea of making first millions in dollars, and that too in dollars, in record 10 days. I mean, hello, Andy. Andy, you must listen.
Yeah.
First $1 million, I have this wonderful idea of cracking a code that can make life simple. It will make life simple if only you could listen to me. Andy?
Oh, what? Sorry?
Oh,
Why have you stopped? Why have you stopped?
I had this idea which could have helped you made $1 million. Never mind.
But why did you stop?
Because you were not paying attention. I was
I
talking
was
to
listening.
you.
I was listening.
I don't think so.
Well, there you go. Thank you very much, Lena. And I'm sorry for being so rude. I was listening, but I obviously didn't look like I was listening. And because I didn't look like I was listening, that had two effects. One, Lena found it quite difficult to continue talking. And two, she got quite irritated with me. And this is what happens if you can't demonstrate that you're listening. It's very important, equally as important as being able to articulate your ideas and express your ideas clearly. Listening is a key communication skill. And hopefully that little demonstration has shown you why it's so important. Okay, thank you very much, Lena, and sorry for pretending to be so rude to you there. Okay, let me share my screen again. Okay, so why are all of these things connected to communication so important? Well, I'll tell you why they're so important. In most job descriptions that I've seen, and I've worked for a lot of different organizations over the years, especially in big Indian organizations, multinational organizations, international organizations, in the JD, in the job description, one of the skills or competencies they're always looking for, be it a medium job, a good job, or the best job in the organization, is good communication skills. That's always a criterion for selection. So at the job interview, they are going to be seeing if you've got the communication skills that they want. Now, why do these organizations want people with good communication skills? Well, it's widely believed that people who are good communicators do better work, that they make fewer mistakes, and they tend to be more effective team players. Why? Because their communication skills help them to build better relationships in the workplace and deal with problems and misunderstandings more effectively. So these skills are crucial in terms of getting a job. And you need both. We've been talking about academic qualifications and communication skills. Not only do you need your academic qualifications, that's your foundation, if you like, your building block for your career. But excellent communication skills are equally necessary if you're going to land the job that you want, especially if it's in one of the large Indian organizations or any multinational or international organization. If you don't have good communication skills, it's not going to happen. Also, I think that communication skills are going to become increasingly important in the future. During this pandemic, we've been conducting a lot of our day-to-day work over Zoom and other platforms like that. And being able to communicate well in that sort of virtual environment is absolutely key. Most international organizations these days have virtual teams who communicate with each other online rather than face-to-face. And communication skills in that sort of environment is also absolutely one of the most important things for organizations to get right. Now, as we move into the future, the world of work is going to be changing. I think communication skills are going to remain important, but I also think that lots of jobs are going to disappear. Some jobs that exist nowadays are going to become much more important. And also there are going to be some jobs that, you know, they don't exist nowadays. We don't know what they are. So let me ask you a question about this. And again, I'd like you to type your answers into the chat box or the Q&A box if you can. What do you think are going to be the most crucial, the most important jobs 5-10 years into the future? Can you type your answers into the Q&A box now, please? What jobs do you think are going to be the most important jobs in the future? Have we got some answers coming in, Lena?
I mean, we have got all the engineers here in this session. So IT sector, programming, data scientist, artificial intelligence, software developer, healthcare jobs, CEO in the field of AI, freelancing, electronic engineering, medicinal. I mean,
excellent.
Did you crash? It's so quick.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone, for your enthusiastic responses. It's really nice to see that you're engaged with us here in the webinar. Yeah, I mean, I think that in the future, well, now to a certain extent, but certainly in the future, if you want to get a good job, you're going to have skills. You're going to have to be able to do things better than AI. And I think that one of the things that we humans still do much better than AI is to listen and to speak, i.e. to communicate. So I think that communication is going to be even more important than it is now in the not too distant future. Interpersonal skills are also going to be vital. So anything you can do now to build up your communication and interpersonal skills is going to stand you in good stead for getting a good job in the future. And it's not just any old interpersonal skills or communication skills. It's becoming very much, if you want to work for an international organization, communication skills in English. So I think that you need to consider if your goal or your aim in life is to get a really good job in an international organization, you need to build up your English, and at the same time, you need to use that English to develop your communication skills. So the two go hand in hand. We here at Burlington English understand that, and that's why we not only teach English and English teachers, but we also have products and services connected to building skills in English, and particularly communication skills. So we're nearly done now, and we'll move on to the question and answer session in a moment. But before we do, I'd like to ask you, I know we have a lot of engineering students here today. I hope that's right. Do any of you aspire to be an aerospace engineer? If you're aspiring to be an aerospace engineer, can you type yes in the chat box? Have we got any answers coming in there, Lena?
Yes, I think we have some people who are very much interested in going up space.
Wow. So, you know, aerospace engineering is to do with aviation and space travel. And, you know, it's an up and coming field still. So interesting to think that in this webinar today, we might have some of India's top aerospace engineers and astronauts of the future. Wow, that's really inspiring. I'm going to end with a video, which I hope you find inspiring. I actually find it quite moving. And the video was made by this guy. Does anyone know who this is? If you think you know who it is, can you type his name in the chat box now? Has anyone identified him, Lena?
There are people who are saying yes, but they're not. Oh, this Prabhat who identified him.
Prabhat,
Yes.
what does Prabhat say?
Yeah, he got him right. He identified him correctly, that he is Chris Hadfield.
It is indeed Chris Hadfield. So well done, Prabhat. Virtual round of applause for Prabhat. Well done. Yeah, this is Chris Hadfield, and Chris Hadfield was the commander of the International Space Station for about a year. And we're going to have a look at a video that he recorded whilst on the International Space Station. Some of you may have seen it before. But before we look at the video, do you know where Chris Hadfield's from? People often mistake this. So let's do our final poll, Lena, and see if our audience can identify where Chris Hadfield is from. I'll stop sharing for a moment so you can run the poll.
Okay.
So you're having a look at question 3 now.
Yes.
Where is Chris Hadfield from? Do you think he's American? Do you think he's British? Or do you think he might be Canadian or Indian? Where do you think he's from? Are the results coming in, Lena?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's give it
response.
another 10 seconds and then we'll close polling. Okay, can you close the poll?
Sure.
Right, so what do people think, Lena?
Okay. 34% of them think that he's American, followed by 29% who think that he's a Brit. 26% of the learners think that he is a Canadian, and 11% think that he's an Indian.
Right. Well, Chris Hadfield is in fact a Canadian, and he's perhaps Canada's only famous astronaut, but a very famous one at that, being commander of the International Space Station. Now, Chris Hadfield did his education in Canada, and he trained to be a mechanical engineer. So any of you who are currently training to be a mechanical engineer, you could reach the giddy heights of the International Space Station if that's what you aspire to. And with good communication skills, the world is your oyster. There are no limits. You can achieve whatever you want to achieve. So let's have a look at a video that Chris Hadfield made whilst on the International Space Station to finish, and then we'll move on to the Q&A. So let me just share my video with you. Just one moment. Give me a minute. Apologies for the delay, right? I'm ready to share now. Okay, so have a look at this video of Chris Hadfield on the International Space Station. Hopefully this will give you some inspiration to follow your dreams in the future. And when we've seen it, we'll finish this lecture and continue with the question and answer. Hang on, I don't think I've hit the right button. Let me do that one more time.
Ground control to Major Tom. control to Major Tom. Lock your Soyuz hatch and put your helmet on. 10, ground control 9, to Major Tom. 8, 7, 6, commencing countdown, engines on. 3, 2, detach from station and may God's love be with you. Ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. But it's time to guide the capsule if you dare. This is Major Tom to ground control. I've left forevermore, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way, and the stars look very different today. For here am I sitting in a tin can, above the world. Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing left to do. Not too long. Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear? Am I floating in my tin can? A last glimpse of the world. Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing left to do.
Wow, so that was pretty awe-inspiring. That could be you one day, all you aspiring aerospace engineers out there. Okay, so we've come to the end of the webinar now. Thank you very much for your attention. Apologies if you can hear my dogs barking in the background. They do that. Yes, so now, Lena, over to you for some questions for the last 15, 20 minutes.
All right, thank you so very much, Andrew. That was a very, very engaging and informative session. In fact, we have over 755 responses here in the Q&A section of the webinar.
Wow.
So to all the lovely students out there, if you have any questions and queries, please type into the Q&A field here. I have received actually 2 questions from Mohammed Altamash Raza. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. My apology for that. But he has asked some very good questions. Andrew, are you open to receive those questions?
Yes, please. Let's hear Mohammed's questions. Thank you for asking questions, Mohammed. That's great.
He's saying, which factors are really very important for good communication skills? That is like smiling, confidence, etc. And the other question that he asked right in the beginning of the session, that do you know any book to improve the communication skill?
Okay, so let's start with what's most important. Well, I think the most important thing, I mean, the absolute basis for good communication skills is confidence. Even if your language is good, say your English language is pretty good, if you're not confident enough to express your ideas, then that's not going to do you much good. So any activities that you could do to help you build confidence. This could be perhaps listening to people who speak confidently. Newsreaders are generally very good. Listen closely to some English language news recordings or watch some English language news videos. Model yourself on those newsreaders. They know how to communicate confidently. Also, maybe you could record yourself. Listen to yourself. Think about what you like, what you don't like, and then make a plan to maybe try and practice and address some of those things that you don't like. Now, if you're learning skills, and communication is a skill, it's good to have a partner. You know, if you were learning tennis, you'd want a tennis partner. If you're learning how to communicate well, it's good to have a communication skills partner. So someone you can work with and practice building up the confidence that you need to speak in front of a few or a large group of people. So practice, practice, practice. In terms of books to recommend, well, I think I could heartily recommend all of our Burlington materials here. We've got an excellent career exploration and soft skills course, which will certainly help you to build your confidence. And if we enter into partnership with Purnima, the Purnima group, then certainly our Burlington materials are going to be available for you there. Yeah, any more questions? I hope that's answered your question to some extent in any way, Mohammed. Thank you for asking that. Do we have any more, Lena?
Yes, so Rahul Sharma asks that though he's very confident that he can communicate pretty good in English, but he wants to increase his vocabulary. So how can he do that?
Okay, well, if you want to increase your vocabulary, you have to make a decision that you're going to spend some time every day doing that. Now, there are many places that you could get vocabulary from. You could get them from articles or news sites online. You could get them from books. You could get them from videos, podcasts, movies, anything like that. So the first thing you're going to want to do is to make a list of new words that you want to know the meaning of. They could be anything. I mean, they could all be connected to a particular topic. They could be 10 words that you picked at random from the BBC News website or anything like that. So first of all, just find out what they mean and how to pronounce them. And then, I'm afraid for vocabulary, it's very much a question of rote learning, just remembering them. I would advise you to not attempt to learn more than 10 new words in one go. And then make sure that you're using those 10 new words before you start to learn 10 more. One way of doing this is that, or to make sure that you can remember them, is to write the words on some small cards with maybe the word on one side and its translation into your language, or a definition on the other side, and then keep them in your pocket. And whenever you've got a couple of minutes during the day, pull out your cards and see if you can remember the meanings of those words. If you do that, you'll soon remember all of them. But I think the most crucial thing to do is, one, you've got to make time for it, and you've actually got to do it. It's not just going to happen. And secondly, you need to limit the number of words that you try and learn at one time. Thirdly, you need to use them. Otherwise, they'll disappear quite soon into the back of your memory if you don't use them. So those would be my 3 tips. Yeah.
Okay, so in fact, that was a very important question. It was asked by more than 4 or 5 students. Abhay Pratap Singh Chauhan is asking, what is a good introduction? I think it's a very pertinent question for an engineering student, especially they have to face placement tests or interviews. So Andrew, if you could advise them that how to go about with a good introduction.
Yeah. This reminds me, in fact, Lena, of something. Thank you for that question, by the way. What did you say the student's name was?
Abhay Pratap Singh Chauhan.
Okay, so Abhi.
Abhay.
Yeah, Abhay. Okay, thank you very much, Abhay, for your question. Excellent question. So, yeah, this reminds me of something that I don't know if you've heard of, called an elevator pitch. And this is when you've got about 30 seconds or so to get your ideas across succinctly and clearly. It's called an elevator pitch because apparently 30 seconds is the average length of a journey in a lift or an elevator. So what do you do in that 30 seconds? Well, first of all, you should decide what you want to say. What are the best things about yourself that you want to get across in your introduction? This is probably something about your experience, about your specialization, about your interests, anything that you think is relevant to the introduction that you're going to be making. So decide exactly what you're going to say in your introduction. And as I said, try and squash it into 30 seconds. And don't speak too quickly. In fact, it's good to slow down when you're making an introduction, especially if you normally talk quite fast. People who speak more slowly tend to be taken more seriously. They sound more confident and they sound more credible. So slow down, decide exactly what you're going to say, and that will differ from introduction to introduction. Practice it, practice it, practice it, so that when it comes to making that introduction, you can do it fluently and confidently, and it sounds natural and credible. So those are the things that I would say to you, Abhi. Yeah, get a clear idea of exactly what you want to say, write it out, make sure it's good, practice it, practice it, practice it, slow down, and then be ready to say that introduction when the situation demands.
Okay, and so I'm combining a few questions, and because these are repetitive now, students are very interested in knowing that how can they speak fluently? How can they get, I think they're writing stable accent, but I think they want to know that how can they speak in an accent which does not show very strong L1 influence, the mother tongue influence. And the other thing that they're very interested in knowing is that the non-verbal communication, on the body postures, making the first impression right. So fluency, accent, and making that first impression.
Okay, so these are all quite big topics. I'll attempt to give you a couple of tips for each of them, and hopefully that will be helpful. In terms of being fluent, I can't stress this enough. It's practice. The more you practice, the more fluent you will become. Now, you could practice on your own. But that's not ideal. I would suggest that you try to get yourself a conversation partner so that you can practice speaking in whatever language. I mean, English, if it's English, great, but in any language. If you want to become fluent and sound confident, you need to practice. And the more you practice, the easier it will become. Another good tip for becoming fluent is to try consciously to slow things down a bit. This gives you more thinking time to think about what you want to say next. So try to reduce the speed of your speech slightly. Not too much, or that would become boring. But reduce it a little bit, yeah? So don't go too slow, but certainly a little slower rather than faster. That can give you, as I said, extra thinking time and help you to get the words that you want to the front of your mind. So practice, practice, practice. Get yourself a conversation partner, much as you would a tennis partner if you were learning tennis, as I said earlier on. In terms of reducing your accent, now do be aware that, and I speak as an ex-IELTS examiner here, that it doesn't matter if you've got an accent. Accents are not bad. We all have different accents, and it's lovely to hear different accents. Accent is only a problem if it is preventing you from communicating, i.e., people can't understand you because of your accent. If you've got a strong accent but people understand you perfectly well, then it really doesn't matter. And that's certainly the view of IELTS. You could score a band 9 in IELTS and still have quite a strong accent, provided it doesn't interfere with the communication. So that's one thing to remember. Accent isn't necessarily bad. I like to hear a good accent, in fact. It's part of the rich variety of English speakers that we have around the world. However, if you do want to improve your pronunciation, the first thing you need to do is to identify the phonemes that you are having difficulties with. Phonemes is just a posh word for the sounds that we make when we speak. For example, is an English phoneme. P is an English phoneme. D is an English phoneme. I is an English phoneme. So you need to identify the ones that you're not pronouncing correctly. And then you need to hear a model of the correct pronunciation. You need to be aware of what's happening with your mouth and your tongue and your lips while you're pronouncing these sounds. And then you need to practice, practice, practice. Now, if you join or subscribe to Burlington, we have an absolutely fabulous piece of artificial intelligence called the Speech Trainer, which if you speak to it, it will identify the problems that you're having with particular phonemes, and it will provide you with exercises and practice activities to correct them. But even if you don't have access to that, it's a question of, one, identifying the phonemes, individual sounds that you're pronouncing incorrectly. Secondly, hearing a clear model of those sounds, which I'm sure you can find on YouTube. There are many very, very short videos of native speakers modeling English phonemes on YouTube. And thirdly, practice, 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 practice. It all comes down to the practice. There was a third part to that, Lena, which I didn't note down. Can you remind me of what it was?
It was on the non-verbal communication, Andy, that, making the first impression, but the non-verbal aspect of it, your body movement, your body postures. Yeah,
absolutely. I think the first thing here is to be aware of your body. When you're interacting with people in an important high-stakes situation, like maybe a presentation or the oral component of an examination, or in an interview or an important meeting, don't just focus on the content of what you're saying, also focus on two other things. First being what you're doing with your face, your hands, your arms, your legs, your posture, and secondly, the sound of your voice. Now, if you're giving a presentation, for example, while you're practicing and preparing, it's a very good idea to video yourself so you can have a look at what you're doing with your body, face, hands, arms, posture, etc. If there's anything that you think doesn't look particularly good, then try to correct it. And practice, practice, practice. It's all about practice, as I keep saying. But you need to be aware first, then you need to make some attempt to correct what you don't like, and then you need to practice as much as you can doing it. I think the most difficult step there is being aware and remembering when you're, for example, delivering a presentation, that you not only need to be thinking about the content, what you're saying, but you also need to be constantly monitoring your body and your voice for the non-verbal signals that you may be sending out. Now, I could probably talk for another 6 hours about non-verbal communication, but I'm not going to. But hopefully, if we get to do another webinar with the Purnima group in the future, maybe non-verbal communication could be one of the topics. Okay, Lena, have we got time for one more question before we close?
Yes. And I think here, though there are a lot of questions, there are questions around even IELTS, but that would be a separate session. There are questions about leadership, but that would be a separate session. But I think one question which kind of, I think, should be addressed by you, Andrew, is that, this has been asked by more than 5 students. They think that, if I have to communicate and for making myself job ready, does that mean that if I'm introvert, I'm at some kind of disadvantage? And if you are an extrovert, you are better placed to have better communication skills as compared to the introvert? I think that should be the last question you should address.
Okay. Well, let me say a little bit about being an extrovert and being an introvert. I am a strong introvert. You think, no, he's not. He's been talking for nearly an hour. He can't possibly be an introvert. Understand the difference between being an introvert and being shy. If you're shy, then you lack confidence. And you can try doing some of those things that I was mentioning earlier to try and build your confidence. Being an introvert is something quite different. Being an introvert simply means that you recharge your batteries. You get your personal energy from periods of being alone. Extroverts, on the other hand, recharge their batteries and get their energy from being with other people. I'm sure you've got introvert and extrovert friends. Your introvert friends, if they've had a really hard week, maybe they want to spend some time on their own, chilling out, relaxing, not speaking to people. This is because being alone helps them to recharge. Your extrovert friends, on the other hand, probably want to relax by going out and meeting people and maybe going out for a coffee or going for a walk with their friends or something like that. This is how they recharge their batteries. So being shy is one thing, but being an extrovert or an introvert is entirely another. So make sure that you don't confuse being an introvert with being shy, because introverts can be just as confident, just as credible, just as interesting to listen to as extroverts. It just may be shyness, i.e. a lack of confidence, that's getting in the way.
All right, thank you, Andy. And though there's a student, Devendra, who has who's asking one single question, continuously, that how to talk effectively to others. But I think Devendra, Andrew has already responded to this question when we were talking about making that first impression. And we are still, a lot of questions are pouring in, but I'm sure by watching this recording again, you would get answers to most of it, and we can plan another sessions in future. But thank you so much.
I've just got
Everybody.
one. I've just got one last question, and I'd like you to. Oh, well, two last questions. Okay, we'll do them one by one. They're very, very quick. Yeah.
Okay.
So the first one. Can you please type yes into the chat box if you learned something today? Did people think they learned something today, Lena?
Yes, it's pouring. It's pouring. Yes.
Excellent. And my last question, and again, please just type yes into the chat box if you enjoyed this webinar. Did you enjoy?
Again, it's pouring. Yes. Thank you
Well,
so
I'm very pleased about that. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, even though I can't see you. And hopefully, when this pandemic is over, I can see some of your faces in the future. That would be great. So thank you very much, Lena, for all of your help and support during this. Thank you very much to Mrs. Garima for organizing this webinar. And thank you very much to the Purnima Group for allowing me to speak to all of your wonderful students. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew, for that talk. Was very, very informative, very engaging, and thank you so very much. I think the crowd was simply amazing. The students, they are so charged up, so enthusiastic. Though it came as a question, but I would pass it on as a compliment to you, Andrew, because I have been to a college. We all have been to a college, and whenever there was a speaker and we were in awe of their aura, we wanted to know their secret. So there was this one student, I think her name was Anu, and she was like, "Oh my God, what an aura you have. So please share your secret." The secrets can be shared later on, but I must pass on that compliment to Andrew here.
Oh, thank you
And
very much, Anu.
And
I'm
so
lovely comment.
even I take this opportunity to thank you, especially to Andrew sir. It was just an amazing session. Every sentence of yours had a tip and trick in itself. So definitely students have learned a lot out of this session. And students, your response was very overwhelming. And I'm really feeling proud that our students responded and they participated in good numbers. And especially thanks to the Burlington team and Dipankar sir for reaching us out and letting us organize this thing and getting to know about more about communication skills for our students. And a sincere thanks from behalf of Purnima Group again. And let's work forward, look forward for more of such sessions and interactions.
Thank you.
thank you. Bye.
Thank you
Have a
so
good
much,
one.
ma'am. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Have a
Like
great
students,
day.
you have to
Bye-bye.
stay.
Thank you.
Students,
Keep learning,
students, you
keep
require to
practicing.
stay.
Thank
There's
you
one
very
announcement
much.
after that. We would like release the Burlington panel to leave the session. We have to address something else to students.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
So students, next just after 5 minutes, we will conduct one I3 day introduction session.